The Buffalo Bills stampede over the Lions 48-42 in Detroit to go 11-3 on the season. And now they've beaten the best team in the AFC and the NFC. We're going to recap this entire shootout. Let's go!
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Discate. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo. Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo.
The Bills make me wanna.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to this special Circling the Wagons recap of the Buffalo Bills defeating the Detroit Lions tonight. What a great game. We have a ton of things to discuss. We're going to talk about our general thoughts of the game, our sweet, sassy, molassy plays of the game, our wall of fame and wall of shame, and we're going to head out for some comments and thoughts from Bills Mafia over all of social media platforms. By the way, if you are watching this live, if you're streaming this live, if you'd like to comment in the comment section, we will be able to get to your comments and share those on screen live as we're going through this. But first, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Mike, for the podcast. Mike, how's it going, man?
It's going great. What a game, Nate. Like you said, they have now beaten the first best team in the NFC, best team in the AFC. Does that make them the best? I feel like it does. To be best, you got to beat the best, and they've done it.
So the only people that would
I don't like to be around negativity, man.
I
don't.
When you say that, I agree with it, right?
Okay.
And we're gonna have to critique this team a little bit. And I love this win. I feel great. I didn't go into this game thinking they were going to win, only because I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought that they had a chance of winning, but I think that what it came down to was it was just a little bit. There were just too many injuries I thought the Bills might have to overcome in the secondary. And I wasn't sure with the Lions getting some players back if the Bills could make up for that. But obviously, very glad that I'm wrong. And so now that when I look at everything in perspective, I think the Bills are the best team, if not, top two, top three, right? I mean, how can you argue that? I mean, when you beat one of the best teams in the NFL in the same season, the whole argument was, who have the Bills beaten? Well, now who have the Bills beaten? All the good teams, right? They've only just lost a couple of fluke losses, really. Two of the games were by like less than a field goal. And then, that blowout loss against the Ravens. So people will say, that loss against the Ravens is big, but it's like, well, all Super Bowl winning teams even lose games like that. Like, that's just the way it is, If you went through the Patriots dynasty, they would have laid at least a couple of eggs each season, right? Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great game. Bills did well. Mike, at any point, especially towards the end of the game, the Bills were up by 2-3 scores at one point. I wasn't worried about it, but then...
No, not till the very 12 seconds.
12 seconds when they kicked the outside.
It was it's a shootout, but you never felt like the Bills were going to lose because they were always up by 2 scores. So you had the comfortable lead until the very end.
Yeah. Dude, how key is Taron Johnson? I know we're going to get to Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame later, but that might have been the most important play of the game looking back at it. I don't think the Lions necessarily would have scored, but I didn't feel 100% confident they were going to win that one at the end. It's just like, well, it felt like neither team was making any big stops.
But Goff has the arm. Like, you could just close your eyes and think of the Hail Marys that Rodgers had thrown in that building. Like, in every season, the Bills are on the losing end of the Hail Mary play. It feels like the catch of the year. You pull up catch of the year on YouTube, it's always a Bills defender who's giving it up. So like, if they got it back, like, all bets are off.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that scares me more than anything, is that, especially with losing. Okay, the Bills were without Taylor Rapp today. Then they lost Cole Bishop, and then they lost, who else was out? Rasul Douglas was out today, and Matt Milano went out. You're just talking about all these.
Was it a groin?
It was a groin injury. Yep.
He pulled it.
Pulled it once.
It felt so good. He pulled it again.
Classic Mike's dad joke. Did you tell me that one that he told you, or did I hear that one from him live? Because he had some really good ones.
Yeah, probably heard that live.
That's a good one.
But
yeah,
you're singing the praises of Ty Johnson, but
Taron Johnson.
It wasn't a clean on the onside. It wasn't clean.
No, not by any means. It didn't go right. It actually went right through his hands, and then it actually got pushed. I think Bernard pushed it right back into his hands.
Yeah, it was only the Bills, man. Like, this is probably not the time or the place for the discussion, but don't you think the onside kick is kind of ridiculous? Like, there should be a way for a higher percent. Like, it's been really neutered to the extent that like it's never recovered by the onside now because you have to declare it. Like, there's so many more rules surrounding it than in years past, like when we grew up with it. Like, the chances were infinitesimal back then, and now it's like so much more locked down. Like, I don't think it would be a more compelling product if you allowed the team who's behind a chance to come back. Don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Like in this instance, I'm glad it's not. That's not the case.
Thank God in this instance. But 100%, the fact that you have to declare it. I mean, think about that Super Bowl with the Colts and the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints come out the second half and they just go right onside kick. Like, it was just, it's one of those things where it easily changed the game for that. And it's crazy. It's crazy. I wish they had gone back to there still being a surprise onside kick if you wanted to. But I think they have to do it that way because, nobody can move on the opposing team side.
Yeah, something's got to be different. Like, just the percentage is so ridiculously low.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way.
What'd you think of the Lions? Was it like they tried it with like 12 minutes left, right? Like, and you're like, what a gift that was.
It ended up being a gift at the time, though, because of how bad our special teams has been at points during the season. I thought, oh man, they're going to get this one. And even when the Bills scored, they went up. What were they up by at that point? I think it was like 45-28. I'm like, they got it in the bag. There's no way the Lions are coming back. And then they scored like back-to-back touchdowns. Yeah. And how great was that recovery? AJ Tharp just put it up right now. Micah Hyde coached Mac Hollins on that play. That's awesome. I love that. That was one of my favorite plays from Micah Hyde is his, return onside kick for a touchdown. And Mac Hollins almost had that. Almost had that too. But isn't it funny with all these things that went the Bills' way? Like, it was still a kind of a close game. I still think the Bills, it wasn't as close as the score implies, but I was a little worried there.
It wasn't till the very end. And it felt like the Lions could have been better with their clock management. And the Bills too, like how Buffalo didn't let it, like on their last offensive possession, right? Like when they went for the field goal, like get that down to the 2-minute warning.
I know.
Like,
Why they
seemed unforgivable.
I know why they give up. That sort of mismanagement of time. See, it's funny because I definitely think the Bills have a chance to go deep into the playoffs, hopefully into the Super Bowl. But there's a few things standing in their way, and that mismanagement of time and timeouts, like timeouts last week, which we talked about at length, which you brought up, and then things like this, like another mismanagement of time, in that they didn't let it go down. Like, it feels like every other team wastes as much time as possible, and then when the Bills get a chance to do it, they still like, nah, we'll be fine. It doesn't cost anything to use that to your advantage. Just do it. It's like, no, we don't want to get, we don't want to get our hands dirty. Just get your hands dirty. Just do whatever. It's within the positive, yeah. But dude, it's funny. We talked about things not going the Bills' way or going the Bills' way. How about when Matt Milano got that fumble recovery on that one play, and they got the penalty against the Lions as well? I'm like, what is this? Like, this isn't real. Like, this has got to be like, I thought for sure Dan Campbell throws a flag and it gets reversed or something like that. Like, this isn't happening. The Bills, it ended up actually going our way, and I was kind of left there like, wait, they're actually snapping the ball in the next play. Like, normally it's stopped, right?
For sure. It felt like up to that point, like, and it might be just like a survivorship bias, but it felt like the Bills time and time again got the short end of the stick. Like on the very first drive, it was like, didn't you think it was pass interference on Shakir in the end zone?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like,
he was holding his hand. He was holding his arm.
Yeah.
How that wasn't called.
Insane. And then the one that stuck out to me too is Allen slid, was on the ground on his back, and then was a Campbell that like one beat and then hits him in the head. And like that's always called.
Always. Every time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like, even if they're pulling up at the last second, they get called. And he didn't even pull up.
Yeah, not at all. And then in the second quarter, it was 3rd and goal on the 1, and the Bills are called for offsides because the offensive lineman like raised his hand, right?
He raised his hand, like, pointing to
yeah. Like it was kind of maddening.
For sure. So the one play that I mentioned, the Milano fumble, like that was against the grain. It did not feel like the Bills were going to get many calls today, for sure.
Against that one, weren't you confident, like watching it back, that it would be overturned?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was no fault. I think they even called it on Deion Dawkins or something like that, didn't they? It wasn't even the guy who was pointing. I thought.
I think it just felt like all the ones that went against the Bills, like, oh, that's no opportunity for it to be reviewed. Like, but I don't see like the fumble where Milano recovered it, like that was a foregone conclusion. Like that unequivocally would have gone in the Bills' favor, right?
Yeah.
There's no like judgment in that. It was like football move.
Yeah.
Fumble.
Ends up going.
And then Milano's just sitting there with the ball.
Just like comes out, it just like drops into it, comes out of his backside and into his hands.
Mm-hmm.
He just cradles it. Yeah. Like he laid an egg or something. Like it was just right there for him. And he's just standing there looking at it. And the whole time when they gave it to the Bills, they ended up giving it to the Bills. I'm like, where are the black refs? Where are the refs in all black just coming out, like telling us that this isn't happening, that there's got to be something against, no, they didn't really mean to do that, guys. Like, oh, okay. I was just waiting for that. But yeah, you're right. So that's another thing, Mike. Now that we're getting closer, we know we're in the playoffs. Now it's just a matter of seeding where they're going to fit. They're definitely going to get at least one home game in the playoffs, hopefully 2, hopefully 3 somehow, even though the Chiefs aren't losing, it seems. Those are the things that, would prevent the Bills from making a Super Bowl run or winning a Super Bowl. I mentioned earlier injuries, referees. I mean, if the refs stand in the way of the Buffalo Bills and the Bills don't, it's one thing if the Bills get pre-snap penalties, right? Like certain pre-snap, not the ones you just mentioned, because that was ridiculous, but like other pre-snap penalties or whatever, like there's nothing you can do. Like that's just, it's obvious. But those other ones, those are the types of things that scare me going into the playoffs. It's like, I don't want to lose because of that. I don't want this game to be decided because somebody was holding Shakir's arm and it wasn't called, right? Or they take liberties and they just, go head hunting on Allen when he's going to slide. Like I thought he gave himself up well before that. Yeah. You know what I mean? It didn't look like
it was a beat, definitely a beat and a half for sure.
What annoys me is I get that referees probably see Allen as more of a running quarterback. So they're like, well, he's going to get hit sometimes, but it's like, you have to treat it like every quarterback's Patrick Mahomes, basically, right? Like if he's in the middle of a slide and he gets hit or taken out, like that could be the end of the season, right? So they have to treat it as such, and they need to start treating Josh Allen, especially if he wins the MVP this year, which we're all hoping. He did a great job for his case of. If he's the MVP of this year, all of a sudden he starts to become one of the faces of the NFL. I think he is right
there.
You think he's there already, right?
Yeah. I think he cemented the MVP today.
You think so? Yeah.
Barring a meltdown.
Well, I think it's a great time to go into like stats of the game because ask
you this. You think the Bills have a chance of catching the Chiefs? The Chiefs have the Texans, the Steelers, and the Broncos. Like, I think the Bills are going to win out. So you think there's a chance? A lot of it, like Mahomes is injured, but it didn't seem super serious.
So we just need them to lose 2 of those games.
Just.
Dude, when so you're saying there's a chance. So when Mahomes went off limping, it reminded me of Paul Pierce in the Lakers Celtics championship or whatever, like 20 years ago, where he was like, they're carrying him off the court, like 4 of them. And then the next week he shows up out of the tunnel and like scores like another 10 3-pointers. Like that's going to be Mahomes. He's just trying to, I feel like he's milking it at this point. And no matter what, they're just going to shoot him up with whatever they shot him up with during the Super Bowl, to make him be able to get through it. But yeah, I think you're right in he's cementing that, and I think that the Bills definitely have a chance to come back.
I think they could lose. What do you think? Go ahead. We should do a poll.
You want me to do a poll on Twitter right now?
Who will they most likely lose to? Texans, Steelers, Broncos.
Because we need them to lose 2, right? Texans, Steelers, Broncos. I think Let's see. It's got to be a team that's potent on offense. Steelers. And the Steelers have been, and they have a really good defense. I'd say the Steelers.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh. That might swing me from the Texans.
Okay. What are the next 3 games? Is it Texans first or Steelers first?
Texans.
Steelers. No one's going to say Broncos. Do I even put
Just
that?
do those 2 then.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Dude, somebody would put it.
People are idiots. This is an interesting take by Charles Byrne. If we want the Super Bowl, the defense better step up. I can't really argue with that. I think if we're going to get a Wall of Shame later, but I don't know how you can't look at this team and say like the Bills do not win this game if Josh Allen isn't MVP worthy. This is and give credit to Joe Brady, give credit to Josh Allen, give credit to James Cook. I mean, the Bills defense did have some takeaways, so it wasn't just Josh Allen, but I mean, this defense is in rough shape at some point. And they even had some players really step up today, like Ed Oliver. So I think the Lions are just that good, but sometimes they've faced some good offenses and they've struggled. I think that's just, the way it's probably going to go for the rest of the season. That's why maybe the Chiefs are a good matchup for the Bills going into the playoffs, because they don't have that dynamic of an offense at this point.
Yeah, it's nice they can win these shootouts though.
It is. I think it was Nate Geary on Twitter. It was like, this is the best offense I've ever seen in my entire life that the Bills have. And if you asked us that at the beginning of the season, I don't know how many members of Bills Mafia would have said that. But I love that question. Mike, is this the best offense that you've ever seen out of the Buffalo Bills in your lifetime? Because we've lived through the Kelly years. I mean, we were young, but we lived through it. It's easily the best offense of my adulthood, I can say.
The game has changed so fundamentally, don't you think? Like, I think the question would be like relative to the rest of the NFL. And it seemed like the Bills with the K gun were doing some things that nobody else was doing then.
Yeah, they were. Could you imagine if Jim Kelly was Josh Allen, could also run the ball along with throwing the ball? I mean, the Bills would have won that Super Bowl. Bills would probably be 4-0 in Super Bowls if Jim Kelly had legs like Josh Allen. So let's go into stats of the game. Let's start off with MVP Josh Allen. 23 for 34, 362 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So we can talk about Josh Allen not only, having great stats, passing the ball, running ball, no turnovers. Again, no turnovers. Leading his rushing stats real quick, 11 attempts for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. What I like, Mike, about one of those rushing touchdowns is that he didn't even have to do the tush push. He just walked in. It's like, what's this like? I feel like anytime a Bills player, I mean, we've seen it happen to us millions of times where another player walks in to the end zone against our defense, but being on the other side and Josh Allen not taking a big hit to get 1 yard, that was nice.
You know what doesn't seems hard to comprehend? This is the 6th straight game where he has multiple touchdowns throwing and rushing.
6 straight?
Yeah.
No kidding. I didn't know it was 6 straight. I thought it was 6 altogether.
It seems insane.
That's got to be a record. Even Michael Vick in his
prime. No, it's he extended the record today.
Oh, he did. Okay, man.
6 straight. That's wild.
It is wild. I love it. I did hear too, before the game, there were rumors that the Bills are in contract extension talks with Josh Allen. So that's a good thing. I mean, we've already witnessed some of the best football we've ever seen in our entire lives out of this team. And to think that it could happen for another 10 years or so, for sure. I mean, I'm psyched about that. I love that they're trying to do that. And it's smart of them to do that before he gets the MVP, because all of a sudden that money goes from top 2, top 3 in the NFL to he's beating out Patrick Mahomes' contract easily,
Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun to watch, but it'll never be like this again. So let's enjoy it. You're one hard hit from going on a tangent here, but there was this one play when he rolled to the right where he released the ball and got hit, right? And it wasn't a penalty. And you're like, oh my God. And if it were you or I, dude, we'd be in the hospital for 3 weeks.
I'd be doing that podcast from one of those body casts they show with the legs up and suspension and the guy can't move. You see in cartoons, it'd be like, Mike, it's good to talk to you. Like I barely have like any. I just have a big enough mouth hole so I can breathe out of. We'd be dead.
And like I was surprised by how much. I was kind of thinking like, oh, they're ahead. They don't need to rely on his legs, but they did at the end. Like they went back to him over and over, and it's just got to enjoy it now because you're one hit away. Because this team would be 500 mediocre without him.
Oh yeah.
Like nobody does more for their team than Allen.
No, nobody does that. Nobody does that. I know Lamar Jackson fans were saying, they won against the Giants backups like 35-10. Lamar Jackson had 5 touchdowns. It's like, yeah, that's not the same as putting up, 5 or 6 touchdowns against, I guess it was 5 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions, like the best team in the NFC. Like that's nothing. This is where MVP narratives are put up because you win against these amazing teams, which the Bills have. And I mentioned that, if you looked at this being the best offense that we've had since we've ever witnessed, possibly, we did all this without Stephon Diggs, right? Who thought that? Who thought that losing your best receiver would actually make the offense better as a collective? And Amari Cooper had like no stats. I know we're going to go into it, but in a minute, but no stats from Amari Cooper, potentially their best wide receiver. So how they're doing it is incredible. AJ Tharp says, enjoy it while we can. Before we know it, we'll draft Todd Collins Jr. and start the generational pain all over again. These are the good times. Yeah, that's kind of like what Mike was saying. I don't want to, it was one hit away, Thank you guys all for putting in comments, whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're finding us. We're streaming over 3,000 people already. This is, by far the most we've had just in the first few minutes. So appreciate all you guys paying attention.
Can anybody see what that is? You should just say 30,000.
It was, did I say 3,000? I meant 30,000. Did I say 3,000? Oh, yeah.
Or is that visible to everyone?
No one can see that. Only I can see the stats. So, yeah, 38,000.
Well, 3 is almost 5.
Oh, yeah.
5 is basically 10.
Yeah, if you're rounding up, 3 becomes 10 within, yeah. James Cook, leading rusher for the Bills, 14 carries, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had that long 41-yard run. I mentioned Josh Allen's rushing attempts. Ray Davis, 7 carries for 15 yards. And on the receiving side, Ty Johnson, oddly enough, I did not have this on my bingo card. Ty Johnson, leading receiver for the Buffalo Bills, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 115 yards. Keon Coleman, the next leading receiver, 1 reception on 2 targets for 64 yards. That's another thing, Mike. Josh Allen had 362 passing yards, and a big chunk of those, his leading receiver was a running back. We're not talking, this is, Julio Jones in his prime. This is their 3rd string running back he's throwing to. Like this could be, I think a few weeks ago, John had mentioned that this kind of reminds him of Tom Brady and the Patriots, right? Where like Tom Brady didn't have, except for one season when he had Randy Moss, he never had the big name wide receivers or the running backs or anything. And he did have one of the best tight ends in the league, but he didn't have a ton of talent around him, like Hall of Fame worthy talent. And he just made it work. And that's what Josh is doing again today. Keon Coleman, 1 reception on 2 targets, next leading receiver, 64 yards. Dalton Kincaid back from injury, which we called on social media. We called that return. My source let us know about that. So if you guys haven't been paying attention, we're 4 for 4 on breaking news. Spencer Brown, Matt Milano, and now this week we had the Dalton Kincaid and Taylor Rapp news. So, by the way, Mike, I was getting a DM from someone else about the breaking news. He's like, dude, this guy just randomly was like, dude, good for you for breaking the news. He's like, I have an inside source with the team, and I broke on Twitter that I think it was Dalton Kincaid or Cole Bishop had like a broken scapula or torn scapula at the beginning of the season, something like that. And he tweeted it out. And then he said the security operations for the Buffalo Bills like contacted him and like found him on LinkedIn and like called him and like said, how did you find out about that? Again, if you're ever wondering why we wear masks and why we don't give out our real names, that's the reason why. Like, I don't need to be harassed by, the Buffalo Bills security team. So yeah, hats off to our source.
Just plead the 5th.
Plead the 5th. Be like, are you going to arrest me? No. Okay. Well, then I think this conversation is over. Whatever they do in the movies when the guys get interrogated, am I being arrested? we'll know. Okay, well then I think I'm free to go then. I wish I had the balls to do that if I ever was arrested.
You'd be cave so easily.
I'd fold like a house of cards, just so simply. All right, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I'd like to think I'd be like the Punisher, like being interrogated by the government, like, and just spit in your face, be like, "Screw you, guy, I'm not." But really, I'd be like, "What do you want to know? I'll tell you. Just don't kill me, and if you do, just make it quick." I'd make a terrible POW too. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 42 yards. Khalil Shakir, 6 receptions on 7 targets for 39 yards and a touchdown. And then Ray Davis had that other touchdown as well. So actually no targets and no receptions for Amari Cooper. That's crazy. Bills score 48 points. Amari Cooper doesn't touch the ball. Insane. So
I think you do a little bit, like when you talk about the no-name guys, I think a little bit of a disservice, right? Like I think Cooper is awesome. Keon Coleman, Kincaid. Like I think there's a lot of talent. It's just diffusion of responsibility a little bit, or maybe in conjunction, like hats off to Joe Brady for spreading the ball around so much. I don't think there's a dearth of, like you're talking about Brady, and I think they had a plug and play model with the running backs, but do you think they really never? I don't know. I just feel like the Bills offense, they've got some guys, some playmakers.
No. Okay.
And Shakir, I mean, geez.
Yes, I love Shakir. So I don't mean to take away.
Knox an amazing catch. Like granted, he can't catch the easy ones, but the circus catches. Nobody's better.
No one's better. If the ball isn't thrown right to his hands, he's Odell Beckham Jr. one-handed in the end zone every time, right? If it's off, maybe that's why Josh Allen did that. At first, I was like, he's wide open. Why are you doing it? And I'm like, oh, Josh Allen's playing 3D chess over here. He knows if he throws it right in his numbers, he's not going to catch. And then, yeah. Then he realizes, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna loft it up there just so he can barely catch it. Yep. Let's see.
So I think that, I guess my point is, I think there's a lot of talent. It's just spread out.
I agree. There is talent. You're right.
Are you being summoned? Is a spider coming down on you or something?
No, my wife's telling me I'm too loud right now. The kids are asleep.
You want to whisper?
I don't know. I want them to be up for this podcast. They need to hear this. They need to hear this fire that Dad is spitting. Okay.
Could switch over to ASMR mode.
Oh. Here's Nate drinking some hot chocolate. No,
somebody got tingles. If there's 10,000 people listening, you awaken something in someone.
30,000 people just had to pause it and just sit back for a second and like fan themselves. I think the diffusion of responsibility is a really good way of putting it, because I agree. Keon Coleman is talented. I'm really excited for his future. Khalil Shakir, love it. Obviously love Amari Cooper and his talent. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid. I think the only thing is, and this isn't a bad thing, again, this goes back to the Tom Brady analogy, is I don't think any of those players are like top 5 in the league at their position necessarily. And that's fine, because we had Stephon Diggs and he was, and where did it get us, right? Maybe it's better. And I think I brought this up even training camp wise or before the season started. It's like, what if we have like 3 number 2 wide receivers instead of 1 number 1 and like a lot of number 3s and 4s, like that could be a good combination.
I think Cooper's a legit 1. Like, you're not saying he's not a 1.
No, this was before Cooper.
Okay.
Like, I mean, between Coleman, Kincaid, Shakir, like those 3 guys, like they're probably not number 1 specifically.
They're not 1 through 5 in the league. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So
yeah,
not 1 through 5 in the league,
receiver,
but
wide receiver 2s, meaning like
maybe 10 through 15.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So I think they yes, exactly. They're all 10 through 15 through their respective position or something like that, right? Like that's great. Maybe you don't need a top 5 guy. You just need a dearth of talent.
Wow.
Does dearth mean the opposite of a lot? I mean a girth of talent. Whenever I think dearth, I always think girth too. And then I always think of only one other thing that could go along with that.
That's width, right?
Is it circumference? Is it
I don't worry about that. That's not important.
That's the only thing I got going for me, if that. So Jared Goff, 38 for 59 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Great game by Jared Goff, like unbelievable game, almost 500 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, but it's completely overshadowed by Josh Allen, right? They're leading the Lions leading rusher at 31 yards, right? And then you look at the receiving stats, and Amon St. Brown had 193 yards and a touchdown. Sam Laporta had 111 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams each had a touchdown. Tim Patrick, someone Skipper had it. Oh yeah, the offensive lineman Skipper.
St. Brown, didn't it feel so different than Nakua last week? I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe just because it came in chunks, and with the Rams, it was like every third down, you're like double, triple Nakua. And like, it's just like so frustrating because he was killing us. But today I didn't get that impression. Maybe it was just because it came in chunks more. But did you get that feeling?
I did not. Yeah, I didn't feel at all like he had the game Nakua had. I know he had a good game, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills cannot cover him. I feel like a lot of those yards and touchdowns, or yards and touchdown, kind of came after like they were trying to play catch up.
Right.
So
And we thought it was over until, yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I wanted to make this analogy last week, so I'm going to do it now because I forgot. But the Bills lost last week, and you and I weren't like overly concerned after that loss. I still think they ran into a buzzsaw. And I think when I think about that game,
it kind of retconned a little bit in the sense of like, then the Rams went out and played like they did. Was that where you were going?
Yeah, continue. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like you're saying, because they scored 12 points, last Thursday, right? And you're like, where is this team, right? I think, and I have like certain contacts over social media through like other teams or whatever, and they're like, this is the best the Rams have looked all season. Like, this is legitimately what we've been waiting for as Rams fans to see, and they finally did it. So I don't know. So I had an analogy, Mike, that game last week I meant to use, but I forgot. Is there sometimes when like you're doing something, you're playing something or whatever, like let's say you're playing golf and you just can't miss, like you're hitting shots, like you're just driving them down the fairway 280 yards, or like maybe you're playing tennis and you're just serving aces. Like there's some days.
It's very elite sports you're using,
So
I don't do any of these.
Yeah, no, okay. So I'm gonna go down to like a real simple one that maybe a lot of people have. Wii bowling.
Okay.
Right? Wii bowling. And this kind of goes into a personal story because the first time I ever met my wife's mom was at a Thanksgiving Day dinner, which is like a terrible time to meet someone's parents looking back at it.
It's like the worst.
It's like the worst. I should have, red flag.
Was she like cooking the dinner too?
Nate, get over here. She's like yelling at me. Like, no. You mean her mom or
yeah,
mom?
like, so it's a super stress.
No. Yeah. Oh, nice to
multiplier.
meet you. Can I help? No, just get out of the way. So she's burning herself. She's like, Nate, I told you to set the table. So we're playing Wii bowling. I'm like, oh, hey, Nate, nice to meet you. I'm Nate, nice to meet you. And she's like, oh, we're talking just for a second. And then all of a sudden it's my turn to play Wii bowling. And I'm like, oh, okay, I haven't done this before in a long time or whatever. Who am I playing against? I'm like, oh, you're playing against your wife's mom, like, or your girlfriend's mom. Like, oh, great. And so wouldn't you know, like, I've never been good at Wii bowling. I've never been good at regular bowling. Like in Wii bowling, I'm like 130, 140 maybe. Mike, when I'm telling you I could not miss a strike, I could not miss a strike. I think I bowled like 260 something. Like I was literally trying to throw the ball, like throw it into the gutter. Like I was up by like 4 or 5 strikes, and like she's trying hard. Her mom is very competitive. So she's like trying to bowl strikes and she's doing good, but I could not miss. Like that is the best game of bowling I've ever played, Wii bowling wise. And I cannot replicate it to save my life. Even if I tried, I was just on like, that was like the Rams against the Bills last week. So there's another time, real quick story. Another time, a previous girlfriend, she was like, oh, I'm in this racquetball league. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I love racquetball. I only played a few times in college, but like I played tennis for a while. Like let's play. And wouldn't you know, like I just smoked her in racquetball when I was trying to, like, you try to hit the ground. And then like I ended up hitting it in the very corner where it just like dribbles out and you get like an ace basically. And I've
never played any of these sports you're talking about.
Yeah. For people that have played any of these sports, they get it. But like, again, completely to my detriment, these 2 times that I played out of my mind, I could never do that in high school sports or whatever, but sometimes you just run into those games. And that was the Bills meeting your future mother-in-law, Wii game, basically. I think that's what that was. So the Bills should really be 12-2. They're 11-3. That one got away from them. The Texans game got away from them. They could legitimately be 13-1 right now without, skipping a beat, but it is the way it is. just a little bit of unluckiness. So yeah, those were stats of the game. Now let's go into sweet sassy molassy plays of the game. Now, Mike, with there being 6 touchdowns, there's a lot of plays to choose from. I have a lot of honorable mentions. I really wanted to see Josh Allen get that like 10, 12-yard shovel pass at the end of the game if there wasn't a holding call. that would have been an amazing play. There were I'm conflicted. I have a few different ones. Do you have one specific one, or are you kind of conflicted with me and have a few?
One that stuck out to me was McDermott's decision to go for it on 4th and 2. Remember?
Oh yeah, from their own. That's a good one, Mike. To Ty Johnson, 31-yard catch on 4th and 2.
Mm-hmm. And then Cook ran it in. Was it the next play?
Yep.
That
led to the 21. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that one.
It felt like it changed the complexion, allowed the Bills to keep their foot on the gas, and the Lions were playing catch up from there on out.
Yeah, good point.
We saw McDermott being more aggressive this year for sure. And then with the Chiefs not giving the ball back, but leaving the ball in Allen's hands, where he ran for the touchdown. And you wonder to what extent or in what game situations he's going to continue to be aggressive. And maybe it was going up against Campbell or the Lions being so potent on offense, but to go for it at midfield
when you're only up 14-7.
Yeah. It felt like it certainly worked out that the team validated the decision, but gutsy call, I thought.
That might be the Gettysburg of the game to a point, right? Like that could be the turning point, because the Bills were only up 14-7. You knew it was going to be a shootout. Every possession matters, and them potentially punting it right there. Only up 14-7. We saw what the Lions did with the ball, almost 500 yards passing by Jared Goff. I think that might be the play of the game, even though it's not a touchdown. And there were some really good touchdowns. Like, I'm with you, Mike. I think that you convinced me. I had the Cook 41-yard touchdown as a big play. The Milano fumble we mentioned.
There's so many. Yeah,
a lot of great
plays. The Milano one is great too.
Even Bass being able to like make the field goals after missing that first one. He was solid after that first miss. I even had, Matt Collins recovered onside kick, Taron Johnson recovering the onside kick at the end of the game. There's a lot of good plays in this game to go to. I think yours makes a lot of sense because of its implications. I think the only thing that was like kind of close to that was the Milano fumble recovery, only because the Bills were up 28-14, and then all of a sudden they went up by 3 scores to 35-14 because Allen had the 3-yard shovel pass. But the precursor to that being an important play was your play. So I like that one. A lot of good plays though. It's easy when your quarterback's playing amazing. Those were sweet sassy. Do you have another Gettysburg of the game by that? I think that's probably the let's see. You know what? Okay. I have an idea for the Gettysburg of the game potentially. It's when the Bills were up 7-0. Allen scored that 1-yard touchdown, the tush push, and then the Lions got the ball back right after. All of a sudden, Christian Benford had a sack, Ed Oliver had a sack, and then a forced 4th down. And then it led to Allen's 4-yard touchdown that we mentioned where he walked right in the first quarter. I liked that series. Again, maybe not the Gettysburg, but important set of plays that helped the Bills get where they were. I know you're not on Twitter. You probably didn't see my tweet. Randomly one night, I was just looking at stats. I'm like, you know what? Ed Oliver's not having a great season. Let me check. So I posted stats from 2023 and now 2024, and it was dramatically different, which, you can't necessarily trust defensive or offensive lineman stats based solely, on how many sacks they have or whatever, right? Like it's just hard to do. It's hard to quantify, right? But it was dramatically different. Like it was probably not just down 10 to 15 to 20%. It was down like 80% in some areas from last season already. And with only like a few more games to go. So it's not like, this is halfway through the season. We only have a few more games. And all of a sudden, like I saw articles being written about Ed Oliver. And I'm like, well, geez, like I didn't think it would catch as much traction to the point where people were interviewing him and asking him about it in the locker room and at press conferences. So he showed up today. And, if I'm going to point out, he give me the old like Josh Allen treatment where the Lions laid him out, except I'm not 6'5", 250 pounds and like amazing shape, right? I'd just be dead. I'd be in that body cast that we talked about. No, he showed up. Hey, if I'm going to point out something where maybe he's not having a tremendous game, or a tremendous season. He heard all of that, or maybe it just finally worked out for him, and he showed up today. So Wall of Fame. Hey, let's go into Wall of Fame, Wall of Shame. By the way, if you're following this along on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you're following us around, any social media accounts, feel free to write in your Wall of Fame and Wall of Shame nominees for this Bills win against the Lions. Mike, I think we have to start off with Josh Allen. I think it's Josh Allen and Josh Allen alone, and a lot of other honorable mentions. Do you have any disagreements with that?
No, I mean he's rewriting the NFL record book, right? It seems like every week there's, hey, it hasn't happened ever, or 50 years. We already talked about it. It's the rushing touchdowns and the passing touchdowns.
I love that you're saying this. You're like, we've already talked about how amazing he is, how this is the best football we've ever seen in our entire life. Just like the tone is like blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. This is the most amazing quarterback we've ever had in our lifetimes, in our parents' lifetimes, in our grandparents' lifetimes. Anywho, it's just
hedonic treadmill, man. Like humans can adjust like that. I'm already, it's
like, all right, I'm on to the Super Bowl. I'm just, if it's not a Super Bowl, I don't care, right? Like yeah, especially with the society we live in with social media and like constantly trying to get dopamine hits, right? Like just constantly refreshing the feed and looking for new media. It's just we have the attention span of goldfish. But I think this can't be. I mean, if this was like the 1960s and Josh Allen was doing this or whatever, there would have been like 10 novels or 10 biographies written about him, and they'd all been like nominated for Pulitzer Prizes. Like that's how well he's playing. So, any honorable mentions? Because I have a few.
No, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what you just said. You got to run some of this stuff by me. What? 10 biographies written for Pulitzer Prize?
Yeah, they're that good.
Okay,
that's because of how amazing his story. So, John texted us beforehand. Our other co-host John that couldn't make it. He says he wants to give it to Ed Oliver. So I had honorable mention for Ed Oliver and the Bills pass rush for once.
Wait, did I get that? Or is he only?
Probably only texted. That was probably our side chat. You're not in that one. So it happens, We don't talk about you specifically in that other side chat. Unlike the side chat you have with John where you talk crap about me the entire, like, Nate's so demanding. He wants us to be on time tonight. So the Bills pass rush at Oliver. Honorable mention to Taron Johnson. Great play by Taron Johnson to the game. He is there, besides Josh Allen now in his later years, I feel clutch defensive player for the Buffalo Bills and Taron Johnson.
Didn't he kind of, what's the word? It wasn't a clean.
Oh, he kind of muffed it a little bit.
Is it muffing when it's onside?
No, it's usually punts.
Yeah.
But I mean, he didn't
just handle it cleanly.
Bobbled it.
So if you're just getting him back to quote Matchbox 20, to just get you back to good, does that make you? That was a deep cut.
That was. Is that like their 28th best single? Like, what did you?
Well, you knew it. Did you not know it? Yeah, you
did. Is that the name of their album or the name of one of their songs?
One of their songs.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had the album. I had to think about that for a second. You're not like
back to good.
You know what? I like to think of Ed Oliver in the pocket. I like to think I'm going to push you around, and I will, and I will. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, but you know what I'm going to think? It's 3 a.m. I think I'm lonely as I'm scrolling through Twitter.
You're clowning on me, but you knew exactly what I meant.
This is just a semi-charmed kind of life, Oh wait, that's a different group. Yeah,
you're giving him credit, and it was his fault that he was in that situation.
Hey man, everyone makes mistakes, all right, Mike. He made up for his mistake, all right? He redeemed himself within the same play.
Yeah, it's back to good.
Now I'm gonna be googling that song after just to remember what it sounds like. Deep cut. So yeah, I give an honorable mention for him. Obviously, Mike would not. I'm going to give an honorable mention to. I thought he did well without Russell Douglas there. I mean, I know he got bit on a couple of plays, but just nothing huge, nothing as crazy as you might have thought.
Nothing deep.
Nothing cheap.
Except for those deep ones that he gave up.
Except for that huge deep one, the 66-yarder by Amon St. Brown. Yep, that really killed us. No, I mean, but for all intents and purposes, like, it's funny. Kaiir Elam plays, he has like flashes. And I'm like, maybe this guy should be starting. Maybe they will start him next year. I don't know. We'll see. Chad Labrie says that's third eye blind, semi-charm kind of life. Thank you, Chad Labrie.
Idiots.
I was joking. Sometimes I get those bands confused, but no, I knew that one at that time. I was just gonna be like in the car and be like, we're all like ants marching, like Matchbox 20.
I can't believe you don't know that song. You're good at humming stuff. You should be humming it right now.
I don't know that one. That one doesn't.
Dude, pull it up on your Spotify. You'll know it.
You want me to do it right now? This is gonna get trademarked on this.
Just so you can hear it. Here, I'll say something over it. Just so you can hear it. Then you can hum it to the audience.
Hold on. Oh, I remember this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it within 2 seconds. Oh, it's nice and slow too. You know how I love those slow. Yeah. Back to good. Back to winning. How about that one? Back to winning. Yes. Yes. It's very smooth like Matchbox 20. I find myself doing that reference, by the way. It's like when it's really hot out there, I'll just say to my wife, I'll be like, man, it's really hot out there. Or it's like 7 inches from the midday sun. And that's all I have to do. I don't finish the rest of that stuff. And she's just like, stop. All right. Enough of that. Wall of shame, Mike. Wall of shame for this one. Who do you have?
I feel like you listed a lot of defensive players, and that's clearly the weakness of the team.
But in the Bills' defense, they were missing 2 safeties. They were missing 1 corner. They were missing 2 linebackers because Matt Milano went out, and then I think either Terrell Bernard went out or Dorian Williams was out for a moment. Yeah, so they had some injuries there. Balin Spector was in, which is never a good sign. Whenever you see Balin Spector in, know that there's been at least 2 injuries.
Right, but how about the defensive line then? Von Miller there.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. 2 weeks in a row. I think, yeah, okay. I can see that. I think the defense needs to scheme slightly better, but again, the Bills were up by 3 scores, and it wasn't until within a minute and a half or 2 minutes of the game where it actually went down to only 1 score. So only towards the end of the game that they almost lost. So how can you be upset about that? Let's see. Yeah, I don't have a better wall of shame. I think the defense is kind of scary right now and not scary like scary good, like scary like the Bills play a really good team defensively, although the Lions do have a good defense. So they got back a lot of their starters this week. I don't know. Maybe the Bills are hitting their stride right now. We'll see. You ready to go into hot takes from Bills Mafia?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. By the way, if you're not following us on social media, we're at CTW Pod, like Circling the Wagons Pod. And every week we mention the Bills have won or lost. What's your take for that game? And Original Hatriots in. He says the Bills will win the AFC Championship game. Their offense cannot be stopped. Once the D gets back to health, there is no team that can keep up other than Detroit. Wow. That is a hot take. That's a hot take. I think we're all thinking it. I think we're all hoping it, but it's a lot different than, this will happen. I love that. And I hope that's right. Philip Masterson. By the way, Philip Masterson, doesn't that sound like a golf name? Is he a professional golfer, Philip Masterson?
He at least has a country club membership.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. It's really probably Philip Masterson the third.
The third, yes. Or the fourth.
How come? Yeah, I was going to say, when does it get to be like too many? Like the 6th? Like you don't really hear about those Kings. Like Patrick Mahomes the second. Philip Masterson says, exhale. What a game. What more can you say about Allen and this offense? I'll give the defense a pass today with injuries, but the D-line performance was encouraging. We need this to be a Super Bowl rematch. That would be good. I've mentioned this, and it's like garnered a lot of attention over social media between, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's like, this is the Bills Lions. Like, this is the Super Bowl the country deserves. And people be like, oh, I don't know if they deserve that. Like, yes, they absolutely do deserve this because nobody wants to see the Chiefs in it at all. So anybody but the Chiefs. And if you put in a team like the Lions, everyone's rooting for those teams. Now, the only thing I'm worried about is that I don't think there's enough between Detroit and Buffalo, since Buffalo is such a small market. I don't think the NFL wants that. But with Josh Allen becoming such a big name within getting married to being engaged to an A-list celebrity, right? Like a very famous person. He's getting, it's not Taylor Swift big, but he's finally garnering a lot of attention on a national level. Big R says, Wall of Fame, Josh and Ed Oliver. Special shout out to the defensive replacements like Elam, Kareem, Cole, and Dorian. Wall of Shame, putting in Spector over Dorian Williams in the fourth quarter. I thought I had heard or seen something over on Twitter that one of the Bills beat reporters was saying that they didn't know why Dorian Williams, they thought maybe he was injured at one point. So if not, I agree 100% with Big R. If he was injured, then that's probably why Spector was in. I think Spector is, by the way, like the first replacement for Terrell Bernard. So that might have been it right there too. Gettysburg, he said the Benford forced fumble. Which one was that, Mike? Oh, that was the Matt Milano fumble recovery. The Benford forced fumble. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, Big R. Big R coming in. Big. Back
I
to
don't
good.
think the Lions get there, man. If you took the field of the NFC, right? When you say the Eagles, the Vikings could knock out the Lions in the NFC North. Bucks have
Firepower. I mean, the Lions were so close to it
I would
last
definitely
year.
take the field over just the Lions. And I think if it's the Bills Lions, I think kind of dilutes the goodwill a little bit, right? Like splits it because they're both such long suffering franchises. But if you have
one of those two, it's a much
right against more of a traditional powerhouse like the Eagles, or would you say you're going back a little ways now, but the Vikings, somebody that's 49ers would have been good. But like if then the country wants to get behind the underdog, like then it's clearly the Bills. If it's Bills Lions, I think it's diluted in that sense. And like as a Bills fan, if you lose, I would not be consoled by like, oh, at least we lost to another long suffering. Let me pick my words carefully.
Yeah.
Another long suffering fan base. Like if they lose to the Eagles versus the Lions, I don't care. Right. But it'd be nice to have the whole country behind the Bills, I think.
Well, you can relate because you've been watching the Vince McMahon documentary as well as I have. It's so
funny. Have, brother.
It's so funny that we were watching it randomly at the same time. And
maybe the algorithm knows like that you started it, so it served it to me, or vice versa.
I wish the algorithm was smart enough to be like, hey, your buddy's watching this, like maybe you should watch it. He didn't just stop after one episode and be like, oh shit, Mike, how didn't you tell me? You'd be like, I've been busy, that's why the algorithm exists. Okay, all right. So that like any good gamesmanship or any good entertainment, there's always got to be a heel and a baby face, right? And so like to your point, there would be two baby faces if the Bills face the Lions. Whereas if you have the Lions face the Chiefs are clearly the heel. Nobody wants them except diehard Chiefs fans. So everyone's going to be rooting against them. It's just going to be like, remember when they tried to make Sergeant Slaughter in like Iraqi? He made him like switch from being like a U.S. sergeant to like an Iraqi like terrorist. Like that's like we would be like the Lions would be Hulk, Hulkamania, right? And then the Chiefs would be Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah,
but like
it's a good go ahead.
But yeah, if it's Buffalo and the Lions, you have two baby faces. Whereas maybe if it's Buffalo, there's no real heel in the NFC though. That's the problem.
To me, the Chiefs are different because of their success. Kids, I think, whereas you or I are more like team oriented, kids, I think, follow athletes, right? Like you'll follow LeBron from team to team to team, to Cleveland, to Miami, to Cleveland, to LA. Like you're a LeBron fan. And I think kids specifically, like they like winning. They want to be around winning. Like it's just natural evolutionary biology, right? Like they like Mahomes. They're not like Chiefs fans, they're Mahomes fans. And like you got like they're wearing the jersey. So like that's the only one where it's like sustained success.
That's a good point.
Like I think a lot of people like have seen them win, and they're in all the national game. Like I think you get a lot of people pulling for Mahomes
more than I think. Yeah.
Whereas if it's a little bit more nebulous, like the 49, like Purdy is maybe great, but he's not like the face of, it's all debatable, but he's not the face of the NFL. Like for me, it's like the face of the NFL is Mahomes and Allen, right? Like who else?
Lamar Jackson probably is in that conversation just because he won MVP. But yeah, you're right. But I don't see, I mean, Allen and Lamar Jackson at this point don't have nearly the pull as Patrick Mahomes does as far as like singular.
I think it's like
Super Bowl.
What does everybody watch? The Super Bowl, and who's always there lately?
It's like when we were Jordan fans in our youth, right? Like we live in New York State.
We didn't know where Chicago was, let alone been there.
Yeah, I still don't know. It's like those people that are just like Patrick Mahomes fans. I remember like it'd be like the people that just showed up to church on like Christmas and Easter, right? That's how it was. So yeah, they're like fans, but like, they're fans of the player, not the. And now I don't even. Yeah, so it's different. I was a Jordan fan, and then I became a Bulls fan, and then I watched them throughout all their championship runs, right? And then I stopped paying attention to the NBA when Jordan retired. So good point. So
I
B
think they
Mormon,
call it a creaster.
a what?
Creaster
Creaster?
is somebody that only goes on Christmas and Easter.
Oh, Creaster. By the way, not very Christian of my dad to my dad. I don't think he's listening to this one anymore. Be like, oh, these people only come. Not very Christian like. He'd be like, oh, I'm just so glad everyone was able to make it today. B Mormon 2020 says kicker carousel was a better option early in the season than Bass, and it still might be a better option with 3 games left. I hope Bass proves me wrong. I just hope it doesn't come down. We mentioned the things that could stop a Bills Super Bowl run. I'd be remiss to not say Tyler Bass is one of those things. Chad Labrie said, defense came out with fierceness and paved the way for the Josh and the offense to dominate the game. The scene in Detroit for this was awesome for this game. Go Bills. Happy Victory Monday. Yeah, Chad was sharing pictures. Him and Stu were out there. Our listeners, our fans out in the Detroit, Michigan area. General Michigan area. So it's good to see those guys. AJ Tharp, hot take. If you told me at the beginning of the season we'd be 11-3 and clinching the AFC East during a quote unquote transition year, I wouldn't have believed you. Lots to clean up defensively, but man, our offense is rolling. 4 games of Josh Allen not getting sacked is mind boggling. Absolutely. Still taking hits, but not getting sacked.
Does anybody call it a transition year?
Yeah, that's what people were saying.
Call it rebuilding.
Oh yeah, rebuild. Yeah, transition. Transition year. What is a now that you mention it, transition kind of has a sound of like a transition. Is that like college? No, transfer. That's what I'm thinking. Transfer year.
There's some word that goes before year, isn't there? Like where you take a break, a something year.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that where like kids would like not go to college right away? Take like a year to just think about life. Must be nice.
Something year. What is that called?
I don't know. If somebody can think of it, go in the comments or write down the comments while I read the next tweet. Hot take. Oh, by the way, do you want to see who's winning in that poll I wrote about who do we think might beat the Chiefs? Okay, so we mentioned that earlier in the podcast. Let's see.
Bro, gap year. It's called gap year.
Gap year. Thank you. Okay, 71% say the Steelers are the most likely to beat the Chiefs. The Texans at 29%, 420 votes.
4,000 votes?
Yes, 42,000 votes. Yes. Good call. Sorry, my stats. I forget that 0 every time I give out the stats. Big Mike says, hot take. People are concerned about the defense giving up so much plays and points are getting in their panties in a bunch. It's obvious that McDermott and Babbage will rely on Superman Josh Allen for MVP to create and score. This has been seen all season. Man, I hope you're right. When was the last time we had an offense, though, that could do this? It feels like the Bills have always relied on the defense to some point. And I think they win last week if it's not for that weird punt return for a block for a touchdown. Charles Burns says the Bills offense has scored 90 points in the past 2 games. That's offense. The Bills defense has allowed 86 points in the past 2 games. Let that sink in. This is Anakin Skywalker. He says, let's have it. No rebuild, only reload. That was definitely a slogan for one of like the Rex Ryan years or something. It's not a rebuild, it's a reload. So that's good that it's actually true though. Whereas that
there's synonyms.
They literally, like, you go to thesaurus.com and it's rebuild and reload. Or did you mean reload? Have now beat the number 1 teams in both conferences, fairly handled them respectfully, should inevitably have the league MVP at QB1. Hot take, I'm ready. I'm ready to be heard again. The time is now. Right here, right now, let's go win it. Mike, this is something that we haven't thought about since we were previewing the Bills AFC Championship game, is that he mentions ready to be hurt, ready to, go in a little bit scared. I remember being extremely scared that, hey, what happens if the Bills make the Super Bowl and the Bills don't win the Super Bowl? I know you can't think that way, but it comes up. I tend to catastrophize things to a certain point. And I'm like, man, that would really suck. That'd be really painful. So, and I talked to friends, like I have a good 49ers friend, and he's like, I'm like, you've seen the 49ers win the Super Bowl. So like when they lost last year, that wasn't that big of a deal. He's like, oh no, that hurt a lot. I was in a depression for a few months. Like, oh, great. So anyway, I feel a lot more confident this year though, for some reason. Koala Bear Khan says Ty Johnson is RB1 as my hot take. I like that. But to be real, I think the defense giving up so many points and yards can be troubling if the offense hiccups. But all we need is one game-changing play from the defense, and we can take advantage of it. Yep, that was clear today. I like that one. Richard
Maybe
W.
a way to
Griswold.
get over. Like I don't think I'd be depressed for months. Depressed, maybe too strong. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Just kind of like a storm cloud.
Because at the end, like we've said it before. With at the end, 31 team fan bases are disappointed. How can you realistically? So you're saying Super Bowl to get so close and then come up short.
So close, yeah, and come up short. I think it'd be different too if the Bills didn't lose 4 in a row. I think our feeling would be like, well, we got there, right? Like at least we got there. Like that's a huge step. That's with our past. That's not a. I mean, it's a big step clearly, but it's not a good enough step if you get there. And what's sad.
But even if you win, you'd want to win the next year. You'd want to go for 2. Then you'd want 3.
So for sure.
I think you got to divorce.
Stack.
Maybe the way would be to like, if the Bills lose, I'm going to Cancun. So like you have a positive.
Oh yeah. If the Bills lose, I'm going on a bender. Yeah, I like that idea because Cancun's kind of expensive.
Well, I mean, so part of you is happy with either outcome.
Yeah, good point. That's what you do. Is you bet sometimes
bet against them.
Bet against them, exactly. Bet so much money against them that if you lose, you're still good, right? You still won some money.
Make this situation so either way we win. We'll have to think about that.
Yes, we will. I've done that before, not recently with the Bills betting against them, just because hey, they win. It's a good day.
Unless they lose but cover.
Well, I would just do money line. Just
You'd have to go to Cancun and not come back.
Richard W. Griswold says MVP Allen comes through again with monster throws and no turnovers. Cook was awesome. Ty Johnson was awesome. Decimated Bills secondary. Holds off impressive Lions offense. First onside kick blew up in Dan Campbell's face, and hopefully Bishop isn't hurt badly. Paging Micah Hyde. I think Bishop went out with cramps, so I'm really hoping that was just like it's always funny when professional athletes go out with cramps. Like I remember getting those in gym class, be like, like I didn't get an IV for it, I get carted off with an IV, but it's just funny. Charles Burns says, hot take, fire the defensive coordinator. Wall of fame, Josh Allen in the offense. Wall of shame, the defense allowing a ridiculous amount of points again. Sweet Sassy Molassy, the fumble recovery call that almost wasn't. Absolutely. I like this one by Alfonso Pedro. We just need an average defense to win Lombardi. Rook 33 said Bills D can relax with this offense. Just let them take the lead. Bill Lasso says the Shakir touchdown was my favorite play. We do not enough runs or shovel passes to our receivers. Felt like those were a staple early in Josh's career. I also like the game Brady called, passing early and aggressively rather than starting slow with the run. Yeah, that was something that the Bills have definitely improved on this year was slow starts on the offense. And the last 2 games, man. Michael Graham says Josh Allen is the MVP, not a hot take. But if he doesn't win MVP, it proves that the NFL hates him. Bills just beat the best team in the NFL. Where are all the people who say the Bills can't beat good teams? Go Bills. I like this one. I think I'm going to end on that one. Mike, thank you guys all for being a part of this, sharing your takes, and letting us know what you thought. It was a tremendous win by the Buffalo Bills. Thank you guys all for viewing, listening. Over 50,000 viewers live streaming this. Appreciate you guys all being a part of it. Mike, any hot takes before we end this one? Before we sign off for this?
Go Bills. Love how the last 3 games are shaping up for the Bills. Not so much for KC, right? Like they have such a much harder schedule. So really optimistic that maybe they can drop 2.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Mike. So I'm gonna sign off. I know that was your Go Bills sign off. For me, Nate, signing off. Go Bills. Thank you guys all for listening, for being a part of the show, for everyone that live tweeted or live commented over social media at us. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. If you're new to us, we post every week, sometimes right after the game, depending on the timing of it. And sometimes that night. We always post the next day, usually for podcast audio wise, video wise. If you're not following us on all social media platforms or subscribing to us on YouTube, please do. We're at CTW Pod, like Circling the Wagons Pod. And yeah, thank you guys all for being a part of this. I'm hoping that what we're all sharing in and talking about is a Super Bowl season that we're just look back at and we're like, I remember talking about the Bills being the Lions and thinking this is a legit team, and then it ended up being the year they won it. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys all for listening. I appreciate you guys being a part of me getting yelled at by my wife for being too loud while the kids were asleep. So thank you guys all for listening. So for me, Nate, go Bills, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
Well, listen, the whole show is called Circling the Wagons. Say no more. I love it.